And welcome to Dwayne's Guitar Lessons, where we're looking at the fourth video here on the 25 extra training tips to help you with your lead guitar playing. And in this video series here, we're going to go over the next 5 tips, which can be 16 through 20. And we're going to start off with number 16, which is go through your training slowly. Now this is very, very important. Whenever you're learning something, you don't want to go through it too fast, okay? Because you're going to lose stuff. You're going to not quite remember the information. You're not going to get everything down really, really well. So whenever you're working on learning anything, especially the guitar, make sure you go through it slowly, okay? Especially like the scales that we discussed, your major scale. Which you should know that. If you have a problem with that, let me know, see if I can help you with that. Also, your blues scale that we learned in the last video, those are great scales for playing some lead guitar. And in this video, we're going to learn another one as well. But make sure you go through that stuff slowly, okay? Make sure you know it very, very well, okay? When you're working on new stuff, new material, you always want to make sure that you go through it slowly so that you digest the information slowly and then it actually gets into your brain and it stays in there, okay? A lot of times when we learn stuff, especially as we get better with our learning, there's 2 places it's got to get to. It's got to get into the short-term memory and it's got to get into the long-term memory. And a lot of times as we progress with our learning, the stuff gets into the short-term memory, but it doesn't get into the long-term memory. And that's why we forget it really easy. And that's why it is that sometimes you remember something from a long time ago, but you don't remember something from last week. It's just because of the fact that, something from a long time ago, you took so much time to learn it that it actually got into the long-term memory, as where something that you learned last week, you might have learned it really fast and it just never got into long-term memory. So always make sure that you go over your stuff. Go over your training slowly. Make sure you learn stuff really, really well. Go over things 2-3 times if necessary. It's not a big deal. It's just all part of the learning. Some things you're going to pick up quickly. Some things going to take you a little while. So make sure that the things that take you a little while, work on them a little bit more. Work on a little bit more and get them into that long-term memory. Okay? All right, so let's look at number 17, learn the chromatic scale. Okay, so here's another scale for you. The chromatic scale is really easy. All it is every single note in the scale, okay? So if you had, like I showed you, the do, re, mi, okay? The do, re, mi was certain intervals. From G to G. Now the chromatic scales can be every single note from G to G. Okay? And that's good for doing, certain types of runs. Okay, so I can go from this G to this G, use the alternate picking that we talked about last time. Go back. Okay, and also do it across the fretboard. Chromatic scale finger exercise, all it is. But it sounds cool. Using every single note that's on the fretboard. And since you only have 4 fingers, you usually use like a 4-finger span, okay? And you can just do that up and down the fretboard, or across the fretboard, however you want to do it. But it's always a good thing you could use every single note, okay? These are just good for like runs, stuff like that, Now you wouldn't want to land on some of those notes because they just don't fit in the scale. Okay, if you were playing in the key of G, you definitely have these other notes in there as well, but you wouldn't want to land on them necessarily. Certain notes you'd want to land on, you just kind of use them as passing notes, okay, passing tones, okay? So that's another thing I would highly recommend. You add that with your alternate picking, and you can just put some really cool, good solos in there, okay? All right, number 18. Alternate picking arpeggios. Okay, this is a really cool thing. Now, when it comes to arpeggios, there's a lot of different things that you can do with the guitar. Arpeggio is basically just taking a chord and picking the notes individually. Okay, like for instance, if I was going to take a G bar chord like this, picking the notes notes individually, okay? Now, there's all kinds of other fancy stuff you can do with arpeggios. You can play them in different places, you know, like we talked about before. You know, that's just arpeggiated A minor chord there. That's all it is. You just pick the strings individually, okay? And you get some really cool techniques that way, okay? By taking chords and putting them in different areas and picking the notes individually to get some really cool sounds, okay? That gives you a little bit different technique when it comes to your lead guitar playing. So that's a really good idea there, okay? And okay, number 19, learn intervals relative to root notes, okay? This is a really important thing to do when you're learning your lead guitar playing as well, because it kind of lets you know where to put the, so to speak, the period at the end of the sentence, okay? For instance, if we're in G, you'd have a G here, and you also have a G right here on the 4th string, 5th fret. So there's a G on the 6th string, 3rd fret, and a G on the 4th string, 5th fret. Okay, so there's 2 G's right there. And you also have a G on the 1st string, 3rd fret. Once again, an interval, you can use that as an arpeggio. By knowing these notes, it lets you know where to like put that period at the end of a sentence, so to speak, you know. See how that note just adds that ending note there, that's a G. So I start on this G, and on that G, and on this G, back on this G, doesn't really matter. So those notes, those root notes are really important to learn because of the fact that what they do is they allow you to kind of know where to put that period at the end of the sentence, so to speak, okay? And what's great about it, once again, like I've told you many times, the guitar is breaking down into patterns, okay? So if you know where those root notes are, like in G, for instance, you got the G on the 6th string, G on the 4th string, 5th fret, and also a G on the 1st string, 3rd fret, okay? You're gonna have the same on any of these other keys. If you're in A, it's gonna be in the same position. 6th string, 4th string, 1st string. B, 7th fret, 6th string, 4th string, 1st string, okay? They're always going to be the same. That's what's great about the guitars. Like I said, it works with patterns, okay? And if you figure out some patterns, it makes it really easy to play. That's how a lot of people kind of learn it, you know, and you see people playing, they're not too sure what notes they're playing. It's because they've learned patterns, okay? I recommend learning your notes. Very important to know that stuff. But as far as just quick learning, break it down into patterns and you'll be able to do it all over the fretboard in any key, okay? So that's really important. That's what I'd highly recommend doing that, okay? That gives you the chance to put that exclamation point or that question mark or that period at the end of the sentence of what it is you're trying to say, okay? And number 20, mute unmuted strings. Mute unused strings, that's what I mean to say. When you're playing, especially with like distortion, you know, and if you're playing at high volume, which we're not playing with high volume in this lesson, but sometimes when you play with high volume, distortion, it's, you know, it's fun to do that when you're rocking out. A lot of times the amp, especially if you have a really good amp, it'll pick up everything. It picks up all the vibration of all the strings and everything. And what happens is you get a lot of unwanted noise, you know, and your notes don't come out very clear. So what you got to do is you got to learn to mute other strings that you're not using. You learn to mute them with this hand, kind of like the palm muting we talked about before. And you also learn to mute them a little bit with your fretboard hand as well, okay? And by doing that, so like for instance with me, if I'm using some of these higher strings, my hand here automatically mutes these lower strings so that they're not vibrating and you can't really hear them as much, okay? If I'm playing like a chord or something, I might be using my fretboard hand to mute strings that I'm not playing, because what that does is it allows to give you a more cleaner sound, okay? You want to get a much cleaner sound that way. So you have to really be careful with that when you're using distortion, because it picks up everything, the vibration of all the strings and everything, and you start playing and you're getting all this unwanted noise, and it's because you need to learn to mute your strings that you're not using. And a lot of it has to do with the way your hand positioning is. You know, you put your hand kind of laid across the strings, and I tend to rock my hand a little bit back and forth like this, depending on how I'm playing. If I'm playing these lower strings, I'll have it back to where it'll mute these higher strings. If I'm playing the higher strings, then I'll turn it to where it'll mute the lower strings, okay? Same thing with here. If I'm using this, I might be muting with my thumb a little bit, you know. There's a lot of different ways, and a lot of it is you just got to experiment with your playing, okay? Everybody plays a little bit different. That's what's great about learning guitar, is that you can kind of take your own personal journey with it and discover what works for you. So what you do is you take ideas from what you're learning from, say, me or other people that you're learning from, and you just try to incorporate some of those ideas into your own playing, and before you know it, you start developing your own style, okay? So that's what I would recommend. Learning how to mute your strings, kind of just work on different techniques, okay? Just work on trying different ideas. That's what it really comes down to, is just trying different things, okay? And no system really works for everybody. It just, you know, that'd be like a shoe that fits everybody. There's no shoe that fits everybody. You know, if it's a size 7, it's going to fit a size 7 foot. Okay, if your foot is 7.5, it's probably not going to fit. But it might give you an idea of what kind of shoe you want when you find that right size, okay? So that's what you really want to do with your learning, is take these as guidelines, ideas to help you with your learning, so you can develop your own style and develop the things that work for you, because you're going to find that some things work for you and some things don't. I know this from my own personal experience of learning from different things, books and teachers and friends and stuff like that, where they'll show me something that works for them and maybe it didn't quite work for me, but I was able to use some of the stuff that they taught me to kind of incorporate into my own playing and develop my own style. And that's what you really want to do. Use these as guidelines to develop your own style, okay? And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and let me know, and I'll try to help you out with that. You can contact me through Facebook or my website, or, you know, the email or whatever, okay? So I want to say thank you so much for watching this. Appreciate it. Practice those tips. Like I said, you're muting your strings. You should have three scales for sure: your major scale, your blues scale, your chromatic scale. Practice your alternate picking. Practice your arpeggiating. You know, picking the strings individually. That's really important. That's going to give you a lot of good techniques, good sounds, different kind of things. And then what I'll do is I'll show you the 5th video that's going to go over the last 5, okay? So thank you very much for watching. You take care, and we'll talk to you soon.